To purchase the EWTN Religious Catalog home video DVD of Coming to Christ, Resting in His Love, log on to our website, EWTNReligiousCatalog.com, and enter item number HDCTC, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or call 1-800-854-6316.
I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, it is Election Day in the United States, and millions of people are headed to the polls. We have live coverage at 6 and 9 p.m. Eastern, including reporters with both candidates, and in the battleground states of North Carolina and Pennsylvania. Join us tonight.
EWTN. Live true. Live Catholic.
Hello and welcome to this EWTN News special coverage of the 2024 election. I'm Tracy Sable, and we have a team of correspondents on the ground. And here in the studio, we have EWTN News President Montse Alvarado and EWTN News correspondent Catherine Hadro. In the field, Eric Rosales is in West Palm Beach, Florida, at former President Donald Trump's campaign watch party. Owen Jensen is in Washington, D.C. at the watch party for Vice President Kamala Harris. Rosal Regis is with voters in a suburb of Charlotte in the battleground state of North Carolina. And Mark Irons is at a polling place in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. Polls in parts of Indiana and Kentucky are now closed, but for the rest of the country, you still have time to vote. You can see voters eagerly waiting, standing in line today, ready to cast their ballots. And many states have already reported record voter turnout, and that's in addition to the tens of millions of ballots already cast. And Mark, you are in the critical swing state of Pennsylvania right now at a polling place in the Bellwether County of Northampton in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So what is the mood there in the Keystone State, and what have voters been telling you?
Well, Tracy, we've heard diverse political opinions here in Pennsylvania, but here's the thing. This state could decide the presidency. Both candidates have campaigned extensively here, and even today we ran into Speaker of the House Mike Johnson at another polling station talking to voters. We're in front of a polling station here. It's a Catholic school, St. Anne Catholic School. The gymnasium inside has been packed with voters throughout the day. Now they're starting to trickle in after work to vote. But talking to voters, including Catholics and people of faith, it's clear the presidency could come down to Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania is a true swing state, and in the Lehigh Valley region around 70 miles north of Philadelphia, voters like Valerie Antonelli aren't always tied to one particular party.
I vote for who I think is going to do the best job, and I have crossed party lines before.
This time she's voting for Vice President Kamala Harris. Meanwhile, Marianne Anthony is backing former President Donald Trump.
To help our economy.
Outside a polling station in Easton, Pennsylvania, we found Republican Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, who thought it was important enough to spend time here and talk with voters.
How important is Pennsylvania to the presidency? Does it go through Pennsylvania?
I think it does. I think what happens in Pennsylvania decides the fate of America.
Pennsylvania voters turning out in large numbers. Tom Dubriel is just one of them.
Yeah, this is the longest line I've ever seen. Normally, we just pull up and walk right in and vote.
Born and raised Catholic, he says his vote goes to Harris.
I think there's a lot of good that she can do.
Meanwhile, Catholic Nancy White is going with Trump.
Our country needs to get back to basics, to family, to God.
The House Speaker told us he believes Catholic voters will be important to the election outcome.
Absolutely they are.
And for Catholic Mark Naperkowski, protecting preborn children is a top priority.
And the bishops have been very clear about this, that the top issue, is life. And so I allow that to guide my voting decision.
When all the votes are counted nationwide and a president declared, we asked the Speaker about his role in Congress.
Will you, as Speaker of the House, play your part to certify the election results, no matter who wins the presidency?
Well, of course. We have a free and fair election. We're going to follow the Constitution. I mean, I've taken an oath to uphold the Constitution.
All right, thank you so much, Mark.
We're
going to
here
head
not
down
only
south.
in a swing state,
Mark, go ahead, please.
but historically a swing county. Tracy, sorry, yes, an incredible stat for you here I have to share. This county, for the past more than 100 years, has decided the presidential winner. They went for Trump in 2016. They went for Biden in 2020. So let's pay attention to what happens here in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you so much for that coverage. We're going to head down south now to Belmont, North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte, where we find EWTN correspondent Roselle Regis. She is also with voters at a polling place there. Roselle.
Neither rain nor hurricane can stop people from voting here in North Carolina. We're at a polling place in Belmont, North Carolina, where people are still heading inside to cast their ballots. Now, many people in the state, especially the western part of North Carolina, are still dealing with the aftermath caused by Hurricane Helene. Relief and recovery efforts are still ongoing. But despite the challenges, election officials say that they are in good shape in terms of voter turnout. North Carolina, a crucial battleground state with 16 electoral votes, could decide the U.S. presidency. On the western part of North Carolina, residents are still recovering from the devastation brought by Hurricane Helene. As a result, state election officials approved emergency measures in the counties most affected by the hurricane. In one of the hard-hit communities in Asheville, residents formed a long line to get their votes in early.
I'm here with my older brother, and we were really determined to get in and vote as soon as we can. This is a monumental election.
Since early voting began here in North Carolina, there have been more than 4 million ballots cast by absentee by mail and early voting. In Charlotte, North Carolina, polling stations were busy as people arrived to cast their ballots on Election Day.
It was a great turnout. I feel like it's a big year for voting, so glad I can do my part and do what I can to impact the future.
The economy is number one, and that goes along with getting everything back on track, so hopefully it'll work out.
There's a lot of key issues for me, but I'm really sensitive for refugees being discriminated against and pushed out of the country, so that's one of my main principles that we stand by.
Economy, for the most part, inflation, things like that. I guess immigration, but mostly the economy.
The environment, climate change, education, abortion rights, but really democracy.
My hope is for a nation that comes together.
Polls here in North Carolina close at 7:30 p.m. Live from Belmont, North Carolina, I'm Roselle Regis, EWTN News.
All right, thank you so much, Roselle, and we'll check back in with you a little later in the show. On July 21st, the race for the White House took a massive turn when President Joe Biden ended his re-election bid and endorsed his vice president to replace him at the top of the ticket. The campaigns shifted gears, changing the course of the 2024 election. EWTN correspondent Owen Jensen has been there for it all, and he reports tonight from the Kamala Harris Watch Party at Howard University in Washington, D.C.
Well, good evening to you and to our EWTN viewers on this special election night, November 5th, 2024. You know, it was decades ago, 1986 to be precise, when Kamala Harris graduated from this school, Howard University, right here in the heart of Washington, D.C. And now, tonight, all these years later, she and her supporters will be gathered here, watching as the election results roll in, hoping to secure a victory and move into the Oval Office. Vice President Kamala Harris wrapped up her campaign with a big rally in Philadelphia, where voters lined up early this morning to cast their ballots. Harris and Donald Trump entered Election Day focused on 7 battleground states, Pennsylvania among them. Harris told the crowd last night,
America is ready for a fresh start, ready for a new way forward, where we see our fellow American not as an enemy, but as a neighbor.
Celebrities like Oprah Winfrey also took the stage, and Lady Gaga joined the performance at Harris's last rally. Later, the vice president did not make it back to Washington, D.C. until just after 1:30 in the morning. Meanwhile, her Democratic running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, stopping on this election day in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
And each and every one of you, Gwen, I, Hope and Gus, thank you to Pennsylvania, but thank you to folks across this country who wrap their arms around our family.
Should Harris win tonight, in addition to being the first female president, she would be the first sitting vice president to win the White House in 32 years. For now, both sides have armies of lawyers in anticipation of legal challenges on and after Election Day. In addition, if Vice President Kamala Harris does become the next president of the United States, pro-life advocates will definitely not have an ally in her. In fact, just the opposite. Harris's campaign was intensely focused on expanding abortion. Harris has slammed the U.S. Supreme Court for overturning Roe versus Wade, which happened 2 years ago in that Dobbs decision. And she was the first vice president to visit an abortion clinic. We'll be here tonight watching the election results as they roll in. Outside Howard University, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly. All right, thank you, Owen. And former President Donald Trump is making his third bid for the White House. EWTN correspondent Eric Rosales is at the Palm Beach County Convention Center at the Trump watch party there. So, Eric, what's the mood like there?
Well, I tell you what, Tracy, good evening to you. Yes, the mood is very positive, a party-like atmosphere. A number of supporters say that they believe that a landslide will actually take place, while others are saying they're a little bit more cautiously optimistic on what's going to happen tonight, this election night. We have been told that President Trump and his family are currently in Mar-a-Lago right now. They're going to be watching the numbers come in all throughout the night. And then later on tonight, they're going to be traveling here along with his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, and give a speech up on the stage behind me. A number of people are starting to come in right now into the convention center. Now, I did speak to a number of campaign Trump officials, and they say it's all going to deal with voter turnout, and that's going to make the difference on this election. Now, earlier this morning, Senator J.D. Vance did cast his ballot over at St. Anthony of Padua Catholic Church in Cincinnati, Ohio. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump and his wife Melania ended up casting their votes just a short distance from here.
No, I feel very confident. I have felt, we went in with a very big lead today. And it looks like Republicans have shown up in force. So we'll see how it turns out.
Our message is, first of all, we do expect to win, but obviously no matter who wins, half the country, as you said, is going to be at least partially disappointed. I think my attitude is the best way to heal the rift in the country is to try to govern the country as well as we can, create as much prosperity as we can for the American people.
And I spent part of the day speaking with voters outside the West Palm Beach Public Library across the street from the Trump International Golf Club.
Which one did you vote for?
Kamala.
And the reasons why?
I just really was afraid from what happened with the last election with Trump. The country just seems to be going in the wrong direction.
I'm an immigrant. I came to this country. It took me 5 years to learn English, and I believe I'm American. I don't say that I'm an ethnic. I am an American.
Carolyn Levitt, the national press secretary for the Trump campaign, is confident the Trump-Vance ticket will win.
The internal data shows him leading in every battleground state. We also look at the early voting trends, and Republicans are outpacing Democrats in many of the battleground states when it comes to early voting. And we know that those voters who like to vote in person on Election Day largely outweigh Democrats.
Meanwhile, the FBI has set up a command center in South Florida to ensure secure voting across the country.
The purpose of the command post is to ensure the FBI is well positioned to respond to threats that would come in. Those threats include criminal threats, such as threats to election workers, foreign malign influence, cyber threats, and acts of domestic violence.
Here in the state of Florida, it's very unique. Half of the state is in two separate time zones, so some of the polls are going to close at 7 o'clock, while those along the Panhandle are going to be closing at 8 o'clock. But again, Trump officials are hoping for a big night, and I'll bring you the very latest throughout the night. From West Palm Beach, Florida, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly. Tracy, back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Eric, for that. We have a lot more still to come here on EWTN special coverage of the 2024 election. And this is not just a presidential race. We also explore the ballot measures affecting life and death issues. Plus, we'll explain how one key demographic group is poised to shape the 2024 election.
Dive deeper into your faith as renowned speakers examine pressing issues facing Catholics today.
God has been with us from the very beginning.
Be courageous. They have been set free by truth.
EWTN takes you to Napa, California for a special 2-day event.
That enhances our devotion.
And so really the message today, I think, is of hope.
The annual Napa Institute Conference, beginning Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern on EWTN. Next time on EWTN Live, Father Wade Meneses encourages men to turn to prayer to help strengthen their faith, home, and family lives on the next EWTN Live.
And welcome back to EWTN News' special election coverage. I'm Tracy Sable.
And I'm Montse Alvarado. As voters cast ballots across the country for the next president of the United States, many states will also be voting on a life or death issue.
Catherine Hadro joins us now with a closer look. Catherine.
Yes, Tracy, 10 states have abortion on the ballot this November. In an effort to bypass the back and forth of the justice system over abortion laws that can lead to years of appeals and overturned court decisions, pro-abortionists are looking to add abortion directly into state constitutions. Several states already have extremely liberal laws where abortion is legal in all 9 months of pregnancy, like Maryland and Colorado. Yet they are seeking to enshrine abortion into their state's constitution. In New York, it is legal until 24 weeks, but there are exceptions, including the mental health of a mother, which would allow abortion up to the moment of birth.
We have concerns that that could lead to courts basically interpreting the rights of minors to be, on equal footing with adults, thereby stripping away parents' rights.
New York goes a step further in its Prop 1 ballot known as the Equal Rights Amendment to include gender identity protections, which can override parental consent for children seeking life-altering gender reassignment. 2 very pro-life states will unfortunately have abortion ballot measures. Missouri, where abortion is illegal with limited exceptions, could see it expand to allow abortion until viability. South Dakota, where babies are protected during all 9 months of pregnancy, has an initiative to constitutionalize abortion and prevent the state from regulating it in the first trimester, but would allow for some regulations in the second trimester. Montana voters will decide on keeping the current viability abortion law, which is around 24 weeks. The 2 swing states with abortion measures, Nevada and Arizona. Arizona allows abortion up until the 15th week of pregnancy, when some doctors say the baby is capable of feeling pain. Voters there could extend the window of abortion up until viability. In Nevada, voters will decide on whether or not to enshrine the current abortion law of 24 weeks into the state constitution. Exceptions for the physical or mental health of the mother has the Nevada right to life concerned.
In our law, viability is defined as 6 months, 24 weeks. That's going to go away, and it will be replaced with a viability standard that's left up to the abortionist. Health is a big it's a big loophole. Health is considered emotional health, financial health. It can be any number of things, any kinds of transitory conditions that could be just, today I'm not feeling good and I don't feel like I can do this.
Nevada has 2 election cycles, so the measure needs to pass this year and then again in 2026. So we won't have results for another 2 years. Those were 8 of the 10 states with ballot initiatives this year. I'll be back a bit later in the broadcast to break down the measure in Florida and the 2 competing abortion ballot measures in Nebraska. Tracy?
Well, Catherine, it seems abortion measures have really gone down to the city level in some areas. Is that right?
That's right, Tracy. In San Francisco, California, for example, voters will decide today on Proposition O, which would declare the city will never prosecute a woman who's had an abortion or anyone who's performed an abortion. Proponents say it will exclude cases of coercion or force. San Francisco's Proposition O would also establish a so-called reproductive freedom fund to raise money for abortion and the morning after
Dr. Pill.
Now, Catherine, these freedom funds were a major push after Roe versus Wade was overturned, with 20 governors initially supporting them. Are there any areas with proposals that will protect life?
Yes, Monse. In Amarillo, Texas, voters will decide on Prop A, which would ban residents from getting abortions outside of the city and would also outlaw people from transporting women outside to get an abortion. Although how that would be enforced remains to be seen.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Catherine.
In the same way that the pro-life vote influenced the 2016 election, Latinos are poised to impact the 2024 election.
Yeah, and there are 32.6 million Latinos that are eligible to vote, making them the second largest group of eligible voters in the country, with close to 15% of the vote. However, of those, a little less than half identify as Catholic.
And they make up notable shares of voters in this year's battleground states, even when only about half of them actually make it to the polls. Here's a look at what has shaped the Latino vote.
The Latino vote's going to decide who wins the presidency and what party controls both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Also, a critical swing vote in the other 5 battleground states.
A coming of age for Latinos eligible to vote as this key demographic leans in to the 2024 election. Every year, about 1.4 million Hispanics in the U.S. become eligible to vote, making Latino voters the nation's second largest group of eligible voters, behind white voters, but ahead of Black and Asian American voters. Positioned in key states that will significantly impact the future of the country, according to Latino professor and philosopher Santiago Ramos, Latinos don't fit neatly into any political party.
I think the reason why people get frustrated with the Latino vote is because it doesn't fit into categories that they already have. I think we force Republicans to notice that there's a working class that is very vulnerable. And with Democrats, we're not individualistic, and we're not, in a way, good liberal subjects.
While demographic studies note the majority of Hispanic Catholics register as Democrats, they are significantly more likely to vote conservative if they attend weekly Mass. But the top issue this election season remains the same for all Americans. A September poll from Pew Research notes that the economy, followed by healthcare, violent crime, and gun policy, are the top issues for Latinos.
We have big families. I mean, you go to the supermarket and it feels like you have to stretch your dollar even more.
When asked about the economy, 80% of Latinos say they're concerned about the price of food, 77% with the cost of housing, and 45% with finding work. While economic issues fuel the urgency to vote, issues like abortion and immigration are also a priority for the Hispanic community. Leah Garcia, who leads the Office of Hispanic Ministry in Baltimore, notes why this makes outreach so important.
We use information and resources to inform the faithful about important dates to register, deadlines to vote, especially information in Spanish. Archbishop Glory recently wrote a letter to all Catholics in the Archdiocese about a very important question that is going to be on the Maryland ballot this November. Question 1 seeks to enshrine abortion in the Maryland state constitution, which is an issue that goes against the teachings of our faith.
Demographic realities for this voter bloc also include an increasing age gap. Latinos eligible to vote in the United States are younger than other voters. Father Agustino of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal in the Bronx says education and ministry need to keep up.
The church has a lot of work to do. The main issues, if you will, the hierarchy of issues, as the Catholic Church teaches, has not been communicated to our young people. But they're hearing a lot of narratives that undermine Catholic teaching subtly, but nonetheless undermine Catholic teaching, principally the dignity of every human person.
And as Latino identification with the faith continues to drop, it's up to the community of faithful to keep this emerging population faithful citizens.
So in my conversations with a lot of the Latino Catholic young people who are eligible to vote, they see that they're somewhat disillusioned by both sides, and they want to vote as Catholics.
It's so interesting to see still articles that say Hispanics or Latinos are the future of the country or the future of the church, when clearly that future has already arrived. Some 8.5 million of the nation's 33.7 million Hispanic eligible voters, or 25%, live in California. The next biggest states by number of Latino eligible voters are Texas with 6.5 million, Florida with 3.5 million, New York with 2.2 million, and Arizona with 1.3 million.
Yeah, Monty, we'll definitely be seeing the impact of this voter bloc and the Catholic roots that they bring with them on this election day. All right, well, up next in our coverage of the 2024 election, we'll check in on trends coming out of voting locations around the country and recap the Catholic moments in the presidential campaign. Stay with us.
The EWTN home video highlight for November is Nativity in Song. In celebration of the Word made flesh, EWTN presents an hour of sacred music of the Advent, Christmas, and Epiphany seasons. Order your DVD or CD at EWTNRC.com, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or call 1-800-854-6316.
Welcome back to our EWTN News election night coverage. I'm Montse Alvarado.
And I'm Tracy Sable. We're watching 7 states that are now considered battlegrounds and are likely to determine who will be the next president.
Those states are Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. They account for 93 Electoral College votes.
And to talk to us more about these states, including their composition, how they are likely to lean, and if they have changed over the course of the election, is expert Ryan Burge, an associate professor of political science at Eastern Illinois University. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, these are all highly contested races. What stands out the most to you in these 7 states, and which one do you have your eye on the most?
So I've been poring over data the last couple of days, and I've seen some big shifts in the white Christian vote. For instance, 74% of white Protestants voted for Donald Trump in 2020. The most recent data said that's down to 69%. Amongst white Catholics, it's gone from 61% to 56%. Another 5-point drop, and there are a whole lot of Christians in those blue wall states of Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan. For instance, almost half of all voters in Wisconsin are white Christians. So if Trump has a 5-point drop in white Christians in any of those states, I just don't see any opportunity for him to take one of those states back. And if Harris holds that blue wall, she will win the election tonight.
Now, Ryan, thinking of this campaign, which of the 7 states received the most attention from the presidential campaigns and which received the least?
So Pennsylvania, number 1. I mean, it's in a category all by itself. If you look at any of the modeling, it says that whoever wins Pennsylvania has about a 90% chance of winning the election because everything is behind that. So if Harris wins Pennsylvania, she's almost certainly going to win Michigan and Wisconsin. If she wins all 3 of those, she's the president. If Trump manages to break through that, then he's going to be the president. I think the states that don't receive enough attention are states out west. States like Nevada and Arizona were huge for Joe Biden in 2020. The candidates went out there a little bit, but I think they spent a whole lot of time in Pennsylvania because they know just how important it is to the tipping point in this model.
All right, Ryan, so much more we can talk about, but we have to leave it right there. Thank you so much for weighing in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, according to findings from Pew Research, there are roughly 52 million Catholic adults in the United States.
Yeah, and whichever can get the most votes of those who identify as Catholic, well, they will likely win the White House.
Pew Research also says that most Catholics in 2016 supported Donald Trump in his victory over Hillary Clinton. 4 years later, Joe Biden won the majority of the faithful and a spot in the White House.
And in addition, Pew found that former President Barack Obama won the majority of Catholic identifying voters in 2008 and in 2012, as did George W. Bush in his re-election victory in 2004.
While the Catholic Church takes a very clear stance on a variety of political issues, the opinions of Catholics casting ballots vary widely. According to the Public Religion Research Institute survey from 2023, Catholic Americans, whether they practice the faith or not, make up about 22% of the nation's population. And that's enough to catch the eye of the candidates. Catholicism was highlighted during several moments this election season, demonstrating the importance of the Catholic voice to both campaigns.
The decades-old heated debate over the denial of communion to pro-abortion politicians ultimately led to a Eucharistic revival that culminated this summer. President Joe Biden stepping down from the Democratic ticket in late July put the discussion of Eucharistic coherence at the White House to bed. With no Catholic candidate vying for the Oval Office, campaigns stretched to reach Catholics in the pews and those culturally engaged with the faith. Both campaigns declared a platform for Catholics in early September of this year, courting voters and holding virtual events like the Catholics for Harris Wall's national organizing call and events held by Catholics for Trump. Former President Trump's rallies have drawn the attention of Catholics from playing the Ave Maria.
Put on Pavarotti singing Ave Maria. Nice and loud. Turn it up louder. We want a little action here.
To receiving a relic of the True Cross and a brown scapular from a Carmelite friar. And the former president's own social media posts wishing the Virgin Mary a happy birthday and invoking St. Michael the Archangel's intercession, reportedly aimed at Catholic voters online. The issue of abortion arose as a challenge to the Trump campaign after it moved away from the once strong protections for life. Supporting controversial in vitro fertilization procedures, Catholic teaching came to the forefront, this time before the renowned Al Smith dinner in New York.
Will you have a religious exemption to your IVF mandate for religious organizations and businesses that feel this violates my religious principles?
Well, you know, I haven't been asked that, but it sounds to me like a pretty good idea.
That same evening was also controversial for the Harris campaign. Vice President Kamala Harris drew sharp criticism for declining to attend, choosing to submit a video message instead.
It's time for a woman, bro!
Early in the election season, another presidential candidate tried to meld faith and politics. Peter Sonsky for the American Solidarity Party. Described as a faithful Catholic and father of 9, he shared his goals with reporter Mark Irons.
The fundamental basis of our party's stance is the dignity of human life. Everything is about human beings. Whatever policy it is it healthcare? Is it the environment? Is it international relations? Is it interstate commerce? Mark, every one of these things boils down to the good of the human person.
The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, in their document, The Role of the Church in American Political Life, reminded the faithful it's our responsibility to learn more of Catholic teaching and tradition, to participate in church life, to learn from trustworthy sources about the issues facing our communities, and to do our best to make wise judgments about candidates and government actions. By forming our consciences for faithful citizenship, we can better pursue the common good and thus obey the command of our Lord to love our neighbors.
And here to discuss how Catholics are faring this election season and their discernment on this consequential vote is Father Thomas Petrie, president of the Dominican House of Studies. Father Petrie, it's so great to have you here with us, especially because we really need prayer. People are really nervous. In the biggest Catholic moments this election season, it was the Holy Father who gave his opinion on the 2024 candidates on his way back to Rome from his tour in Southeast Asia. Here's what he said.
In genere, si dice che non votare è brutto.
You have to vote, and one must choose the lesser of two evils. Who is the lesser of two evils? That lady or that gentleman? I don't know. Everyone with a conscience should think on this and do it.
Now, Pope Francis slammed both presidential candidates without naming names as, quote, anti-life. He continued his explanation saying both are anti-life, but the one who throws out migrants and the one who kills babies, both of them are against life. Father Petrie, is the Holy Father equating immigration and abortion?
Well, he might be. It's hard to always divine the Holy Father's mind. You know, this language of choosing the lesser of evils. As a moral theologian, I would say we should never choose any evil, right? And so Joseph Ratzinger in 2004 2004 when he wrote a response to the U.S. bishops, said that Catholics sometimes will have two bad choices, or two choices that aren't that great in various ways. That Catholics can choose, say, a candidate who is in fact pro-abortion, but they must have proportionate reasons, and they can't choose that candidate because the candidate is pro-abortion. In other words, we're not choosing the lesser of evils. There has to be something good in the candidate we're voting for, and there has to be proportionate reasons to tolerate any of the evil policies that we may not agree with and actually disdain.
Well, you don't really have a Catholic running for office except for J.D. Vance, with President Biden out of the office now. J.D. Vance does identify as Catholic. Have you actually seen his Catholicism come through as he's been campaigning?
I think so. I think, there was a little nervousness just about the abortion language and whether or not a national abortion ban is appropriate and should be sought. But, after the Dobbs decision a couple of years ago, the pro-life movement and Catholics really have to have a civil and legitimate disagreement about how to move forward in eliminating abortion from our country. That might mean a national ban, if that's feasible, or it might mean going state to state. And it seems that J.D. Vance and President Trump have articulated their position that it's better to convert minds and hearts state to state on this issue.
Well, let's talk about some of the statistics and surveys about the so-called Catholic vote. Many Catholics who claim the faith don't attend Sunday Mass, and that means they're in a state of mortal sin. Knowing that, how are we supposed to think about this secular definition of Catholic that is used to report out results?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because so often we hear these statistics about Catholics voting in a certain way and being split in the vote, but this is true, that we don't have a lot of Catholics. We have a large number of Catholics who aren't going to Mass every Sunday, and therefore don't really speak with what we call in the church the sensus fidelium. You have to be part of the church and growing in faith, growing in prayer, growing in knowledge of what the church teaches to really say that you have the sense of the faithful. And so when we do have these large blocks of Catholics who really aren't practicing Catholics, it's hard to say that they actually really do represent Catholic voters, even if they are identifying as Catholic.
Now, a different study by the Public Religion Research Institute and Catholics said that Catholics who attend weekly religious services are notably more Republican or more conservative. We saw this also with the Latino vote, where if they go to Mass, they're more conservative. Is that an indicator of formation, or what is that telling us?
Well, I do think it's an indicator that the two parties have moved in different directions. My grandparents, my parents were certainly solidly Democrat, working class Democrats in the 50s, well into the 60s. I think somewhere in the 70s or 80s, there was a different alignment on values and cultural values. So it shouldn't be surprising that Catholics who are very involved in the faith are moving in more conservative trends. I would simply caution, however, that we got to be careful. Neither party can really be called the Catholic Party, and that Christ is still the Lord and will be Lord when we all wake up tomorrow morning.
I heard someone say that it's important for Catholics to impose themselves on the political system and not to be owned by anyone, lest we become irrelevant.
That's great. That's great.
I found that very heartening. Well, thank you so much for being with us. We know that we're going to be relying on you for coverage and for analysis ongoing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we will continue praying for our nation as polls start to close. The first few at the top of the hour at 7 p.m. Eastern.
For more than 150 years, Catholics in the USA have placed their lives, hopes, dreams, and concerns under the special patronage of Mary, the Mother of God. Now, more than ever, we need to join together to turn to her in prayer through the Holy Rosary, to ask for healing in our church. To aid this effort, we are pleased to be offering a unique rosary from Gorelli, featuring a special crucifix with red and blue enamel stars and stripes on the front and One Nation Under God on the back. On the center is an image of Our Lady over a map of the United States with Psalm 33:12 on the back. Every Hail Mary bead has each state's individual abbreviation on it. This collector rosary is available now at EWTNRC.com for just $36. To order, go to EWTNRC.com and search for item number 19183. The Blessed is the Nation Rosary for America. Order yours today.
They are saints, revered by the Church for the value of their writing and teaching, and for the sanctity of their lives. With each of them a charism of wisdom, bestowed by the Holy Spirit for the good of the Church. Through their legacy, they continue to proclaim the gospel of Christ to the world. They are the Doctors of the Church, an EWTN exclusive series, Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern on EWTN.
And welcome back to our special coverage of the 2024 election. There are a lot of issues voters are considering when they're casting their ballots, from the economy to foreign relations and life issues, including abortion and even transgender ideology. As we mentioned earlier, New York's Proposition 1, which seeks to enshrine abortion into the state constitution, is also adding in language focused on gender identity and gender expression under the so-called Equal Rights Amendment measure. Pope Francis has been outspoken about gender ideology.
Hanno dato adito a colonizzazioni ideologiche.
Instances of ideological colonization in which gender theory plays a central role. The latter is extremely dangerous since it cancels differences in its claim to make everyone equal.
Rendere tutti uguali.
The Holy Father has called gender ideology the ugliest danger of our time for attempting to erase the differences between the sexes. And Christina Bennett, correspondent for Live Action, joins us now to weigh in on this growing debate. Great to be with you, Christina.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is a pleasure. I want to start off now by talking about Title IX. How are you seeing parents, fight back against the changes that it would place, having biological boys in girls' bathrooms? What are parents doing?
Well, I'm seeing moms rise up across the nation with Mama Bear spirits. From Moms for Liberty, a group called Don't Mess With Our Kids movement. These moms are gathering at state capitals. They are rallying. They are talking to their friends and their neighbors. They're talking to their elected officials. They're talking to schools, and they're letting them know that this is indoctrination and it's hurting their sons and daughters. And I'm very proud of what I'm seeing with moms across the nation.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this. Democratic Vice Presidential candidate Tim Walz, he really has some of the most aggressive policies pushing gender transitions for children. In fact, he himself has called his state a trans refuge state. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
First thing we did is we banned conversion therapy in Minnesota. We protected transgender community and said, in Minnesota, you are seen, heard, loved, and respected, and safe in Minnesota.
In the meantime, his running mate, Vice President Harris, in her home state of California, it's also considered a trans refuge state. Do you think if there is a Harris-Walz administration, do you think that they would maybe make this a federal regulation?
Well, I think they definitely could, because we've had members of Congress who for years have been trying to pass federal regulations on this issue. And if they were in office, I'm sure if it came to their desk that they would sign legislation like that into federal law. And so that is something that we need to be concerned about. I think it's unfair that when we talk about kids, when we talk about this issue, that one side thinks that they are the ones that are showing love and protection and wanting children to be safe, when really we want the same things. And that's why we're speaking out against these dangerous views, because we know they are hurting children. They are causing young women to have surgeries and make life-altering changes that are going to affect them and possibly prevent them from having children one day and affect their legacy. And so we are very concerned about protecting children, and that's why we have to be vocal on these issues.
Yeah, Christina, we have maybe a minute left, but I want to talk about this. Vice President Kamala Harris, she was with the so-called Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence back in 2019. It's really the first time the transgender issue, that is, has really been front and center in the race here in the presidential election. I want to talk more about that. Why do you think that is, and how is this affecting other communities?
I think it's affecting us all because children are growing up now in a world and in school systems where they're confused about who they are. They're confused about their gender identity. And those are things that I myself growing up in school never questioned, never had teachers talk to me about those things. And so our whole society is wrestling with these issues, and it's hurting us. And it's sad to see elected officials who are supporting these types of indoctrination and hurting children.
Yeah, absolutely. Christina, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it, and we're going to have you back for some post-election analysis.
You're welcome.
So thank you so much. God bless. And we're going to go back out to our correspondents now with the presidential campaigns. Owen Jensen is live for us at the Harris Watch Party in Washington, D.C. Owen.
Good energy. Well, good evening to you on this special election coverage that we're providing tonight to our EWTN viewers. Howard University in the heart of Washington, D.C. is where we are tonight. Behind me, the stage where Vice President Kamala Harris will speak later tonight. Who knows, maybe early tomorrow morning, depending how the counting goes. Harris knows this university very well. She graduated from here in the mid-1980s, 1986 to be exact, a political science and economics major. Now, earlier today, she was interviewed on a radio station, and she went down memory lane a little bit. Take a listen.
So let me tell you, the first office I ever ran for was freshman class representative at Howard University. And to go back tonight to Howard University, my beloved alma mater, and be able to hopefully, recognize this day for what it is really, it's full circle for me. And, if elected, I'll be the first HBCU president.
Now, whoever wins this election tonight, whether it's Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, when the final votes are tallied, will face a world and a nation that has a long list of incredible problems, some of them seemingly intractable. Let's go down the list for you a little bit right here. Just to name a few. Inflation, which has pummeled Americans for years now. Grocery prices battering budgets. Gas prices making it painful to fill up just about everywhere you go. Housing and rent prices, hard to afford a home out there and put down a down payment. And the $36 trillion debt and growing. Overseas, wars and conflict. Russia's invasion of Ukraine still ongoing. Thousands dead and no end in sight. The war in the Middle East. Israel battling Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthi rebels, and Iran. Hostages still held in Gaza for over a year now. Thousands of innocents killed. And don't forget about the ongoing conflict in Sudan, facing famine and fighting, and millions there displaced on the continent. Now, if Harris wins, pro-life groups will know they will not have an ally in her, not by a long shot. In fact, just the opposite. She's been the administration's key person on abortion, pushing for expansion of it at every turn. Back to you.
Oh, well, let me ask you this question. I hear a lot of noise out there. It sounds like music, too. What's the current mood there where you are?
Yeah, let me do a little scene setter, as they call it, for you. We got a warm, breezy night here. Just, the crowd's starting to fill up. Still early in the evening. In fact, the vote counting is still going on. But a lot of smiles on faces right now. Of course, as the night goes on, we'll see if those smiles stay on those faces or if they turn to grimaces, depending on the overall count. But the feeling is always optimistic this early in the evening. We'll be here keeping an eye on all of it for you. Back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Owen, for that report. Now let's go down to Eric Rosales. He's at the Trump Watch Party in West Palm Beach, Florida. So, Eric, what's the feeling there?
Well, I tell you what, the mood still is very upbeat. It's still a party-like atmosphere as people continue to roll in here at the after party. And the polls around the country are going to be closing in about 15 minutes right now. They close at 7 o'clock here in Florida, except for the Panhandle. They close around 8 o'clock, and all eyes are going to be on the swing states. In particular, as we mentioned, Pennsylvania. I did speak with the Trump campaign headquarters. They tell me that they have a number of people on the ground in Pennsylvania just to make sure that election integrity continues in that state.
Well, we have caught voting irregularities and fraud in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania because we have a world-class election integrity team that is on the ground in Pennsylvania and every other battleground state looking out for irregularities.
Hundreds of foreign journalists are also here. I talked with a Catholic reporter from Argentina who always wears his patron saint inside his suit.
We have a president, Javier Milei, who is a great supporter of Donald Trump. So in the government of Argentina, they have a high expectations about what will happen today.
I also caught up with a couple from Finland who planned their vacation around the election and wanted to be in South Florida near Mar-a-Lago for the Trump victory.
And I like it, American style, American system, American car. And this weather is very nice for me.
He tells me he's predicted every American election since 1963.
Who is going to win this election?
Niin nyt. Trump.
We have to see if he's going to be correct tonight. Over the past several days, the former president has made a number of campaign stops all throughout the country and a number of podcasts, including Joe Rogan's podcast with an audience of 19 million views. So he hopes that that will make the difference, according to his campaign. But again, we're all waiting for the numbers. We're expecting them in about an hour and a half, the first numbers to come in. Reporting live from the Convention Center in Florida, Eric Rosales, EWTN News.
And up next on EWTN, abortion in America. We take a closer look at the states with pro-life proposals on the ballot.
Looking for a great new Advent tradition for your family this season? Check out the Jesse Tree. It's a traditional devotion that traces the family tree of Jesus from the book of Genesis to the Nativity. Now your family can prayerfully go day by day through the Advent season, focused on Scripture and the coming of Christ. EWTN Religious Catalog is pleased to be able to feature a complete Jesse Tree ornament set that includes everything you need to make this an annual tradition in your household. Made in the USA, the set comes with 27 ornaments and a beautiful devotional book. Order today. Go to EWTNRC.com and search for item number 2022K. This Advent, keep the meaning in the season. Get your Jesse Tree ornament collection today.
It would wipe out all the pro-life laws in Florida, very likely. It would eliminate the parental involvement law. There's a very good chance it would require taxpayer funding of abortion through Florida's Medicaid program. And it would also essentially legalize abortion throughout all 9 months of pregnancy.
Well, extreme abortion amendments are being voted on in multiple states across the country, including in Florida. Our election coverage continues now with another look at state ballot initiatives. And for that, we go to EWTN News correspondent Catherine Hadro. Catherine.
Tracy, Florida has the highest population out of the 10 states with abortion measures on the ballot this year. The Sunshine State has strong pro-life advocates, including Governor Ron DeSantis. Last year, Governor DeSantis signed the heartbeat bill into law. That law protects life after a heartbeat is detected in a baby, which is typically around 6 weeks. The law only took effect in May of this year. Florida's Amendment 4 would allow abortion without restriction up to the point of viability, which is around 24 weeks, and even beyond if the patient's healthcare provider gives approval. Pro-life advocates have warned abortion could be allowed up to the moment of birth if it passes.
The amendment language specifically eliminates parental consent and only maintains parental notification. And I think most people, once they process that, understand that notifying is very different than a parent actually consenting to a minor obtaining a very dangerous medical procedure that has life-altering consequences.
Florida's amendment is unique in that it needs 60% of voters to approve it before it can pass. Recent polls showed only about a 43% approval rating. Turning to Nebraska now, where voters will decide between two abortion amendments. Nebraska currently allows abortion up until 12 weeks. Initiative 434 would keep the 12-week limit with exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. But Initiative 429 would extend the abortion window, allowing it up until viability, which is, again, around that 24-week mark.
It's very clear. Catholics in Nebraska should be voting against Initiative 439. It is an unsafe, unregulated, un-Nebraskan abortion proposal.
The Catholic Church is asking voters to vote against Measure 439 and for Measure 434. But either way, abortion in Nebraska will remain legal. It is just a matter of how late into pregnancy abortion is permitted. Joining us now with analysis on state abortion measures is Kelsey Pritchard, the State Public Affairs Director for Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. Kelsey, thanks for joining us. When you look at the campaign specifically in Florida, do you think it's likely to win? Former President Trump recently flip-flopped on his stance on Amendment 4. Did that create confusion there?
I think the pro-life side has a good chance of beating Amendment 4 tonight, and that is in huge thanks to Governor Ron DeSantis. He has been for weeks talking to people about the true implications of this abortion ballot measure and how it will allow abortion at any point in pregnancy, and it will take away parental consent. And he's been traveling around the state talking about this. His health department has been very, very clear about misinformation from the other side in their ads on the life of the mother exception there. And when Donald Trump came out saying that he was going to vote against the measure, I think that only helped in cementing not only the pro-life vote, but people who are more moderate and exposing how extreme this measure truly is.
Seems like there's a lot of pro-life optimism around Florida right now. And the situation in Nebraska, that's unique because it has these competing amendments, pro-abortion versus pro-life. How does that affect the pro-life strategy?
Yes, there are different scenarios that could play out in Nebraska tonight that would leave us with a win. Both ballot measures could fail. We would count that as a win because the bad one would not be put in the Constitution. One could pass and one could fail. And if both pass, the one that has the most support is the one that wins. So if the measure that prevents abortion in the second and third trimester gets just a few votes more than the bad one that would allow abortion at any point, that's the one that would go in the Constitution. So feeling good about Nebraska tonight as well.
We'll be monitoring that, of course. And what are you expecting from the three states that are considered the most pro-life and the abortion amendments there? Missouri, Florida, and South Dakota.
Yeah, all of these states are very pro-life. We've seen different amounts of funding come in as far as there's some discrepancies in Missouri. The pro-life side is really outfunded there, unfortunately. But in South Dakota, the funding has been more even until recently, and the pro-life side actually has raised more money as of the latest reporting than the pro-abortion side. So we're optimistic. The churches there have been really involved in all of these states to sound the alarm and expose what exactly these amendments do. So praying for those states tonight. And if you live in one of those states and the polls haven't shut and you haven't voted, you've still got time.
A great reminder. And looking more closely at South Dakota, you worked for the governor's office in South Dakota and you live there. How do you see the abortion amendment playing out specifically in South Dakota?
South Dakota is a very pro-life state, and we really do not take kindly when leftist forces try to come in and make us more like California or Illinois. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Governor Pritzker. He has swooped in. It's not bad enough what he's done to his own state, but now he's trying to make other states very pro-abortion and allow abortion at any point. And so he's dumped money into the South Dakota race. But I think in South Dakota, we are very pro-life, and we don't like mandated taxpayer-funded abortion. We don't like the removal of parental rights. And so in any of these states, if voters understand what they're voting on, they will reject these measures. And so prayers for South Dakota and all of the states where abortion is on the ballot today.
Absolutely, those prayers. And Kelsey, I have just under a minute with you, but can you quickly speak to the importance of pro-life protections at the state level in this post-Roe v. Wade era?
Yeah, there are almost half of the states have a pro-life protection in place and protect babies at the point they can feel pain at 15 weeks or earlier. And these laws truly do save lives, and they protect the most defenseless among us. And we know they're under attack through the abortion industry, through ballot measures, through litigation. And so we must all do our part and ask God what our part is individually and help protecting life in our states, whether we have that law in place or whether we don't. And we can be the hands and feet of the pro-life movement through pregnancy resource centers or by other ways that God would use us.
Kelsey, we thank you so much for your insight. Back to you now, Tracy.
Okay, thank you so much, Catherine, for that. Remember, for many of you, it's not too late to vote. The polls in most states, even on the East Coast, well, they are still open. Let's go back to our two correspondents standing by the polling places where voters are still in line to cast their ballots. Mark Irons is in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and Roselle Regis is outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. Roselle.
Tracy, we are counting down here in North Carolina. Polls close at 7:30 p.m. Earlier today, it did rain for a couple of hours, but now that the rain has stopped, we are still seeing people heading inside to cast their ballots. Soon, we will be heading to Belmont Abbey College just down the road for a watch party. Reporting live in Belmont, North Carolina, I'm Roselle Regis, EWTN News.
All right, thank you so much for that, Roselle. We're going to check back in with Mark, who is in the Keystone State. Mark.
Well, Tracy, polls are open here in Pennsylvania until 8 p.m. So if you live in the Keystone State, you have about another hour to come out and cast your ballot. And we've been throughout this county of Northampton County at different polling stations throughout the day. We've seen long lines. A lot of people have said the longest lines they've ever seen for a presidential election. We've heard that a number of times today throughout the day. It's pretty quiet right now at this polling station. We're in front of St. Anne Catholic School. But I do have to tell you here, starting this final hour, we have seen some sporadic batches of voters coming and going. And just to give you a sense of this area that we're in right now, I'm looking across the street. There's sort of a neighborhood. It's sort of a suburban area. And you can see Trump signs right next to Harris signs in front yards. And that kind of gives you a sense of this county. It's truly a swing county and a swing state. And all eyes are on Pennsylvania, frankly. So, Tracy, we will continue to pay attention to the results as they come in. Again, you have about an hour left to vote here in Pennsylvania.
All right. Thank you, Mark, for that. And EWTN News has much more election coverage ahead. And we're back at 9 p.m. Eastern as the results start coming in. And we thank you for watching tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. We'll see you right back here in 2 hours. God bless.
As the results come in, EWTN News is here for you. Our Election Night special continues tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern here on EWTN. EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Family, a prayer that we pray together is